Hey everyone, it's Cyrus here and welcome to another episode of the Boxica podcast. I'm here today with two of our gorgeous Boxica ladies, Kate and Sharon.
Thank you. Hi.
And today's subject is something that I truly believe a lot of women and men are going to get a lot of value from. We have two experts, so I'm genuinely intrigued to ask legitimate questions because I put my hand up and say I know absolutely nothing about the subject. So the subject is menopause, perimenopause. Sharon, can we first please define the subject matter? What are we talking about here?
Okay, so recently I have been having a lot of, I won't call them older, but like ladies that are getting to the age where their bodies and things are starting to change, and I feel like as a fitness professional that I need to bring myself to understand what women are eventually going to go through. So I'm studying at the minute to become a specialist in the menopause. And why is because I want to educate myself by the time that every woman's going to go through it. And I want to be able to educate myself to be able to know what's going to happen to my body by the time that happens. And for some women it can happen later on in life, and it can happen as early as late 30s. That's called the early menopause.
But what happens then?
So menopause doesn't actually happen until you have not had a full cycle for 12 months. So what women experience from maybe around early mid-40s is called the perimenopause. And all that happens is their estrogen, their proestrogen, all the different hormones start to deplete, and then they start to notice a lot of changes in their body. And a lot of women don't know what's happened to them because they're not educated. And they just think that it could be, we talked about this earlier, about environmental changes. You know, in Dubai there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of other things that can cause these types of symptoms, which we'll talk about later because there's a lot of them. So once your hormone imbalance starts to reduce, then women start to go through different cycles in their months. So their monthly cycle might actually become more, where it could be like twice a month. It could be for the full month.
Twice a month?
Yeah, it could go less. Or it could go heavier as well. So a lot of women, no journey is ever going to be the same. Every woman is going to experience something different. And
right.
There's not enough support and education out there for these women that are going to doctors, and Katie will be able to tell you about this as well, and they just basically fob you off and tell you that, oh, you're too young, or, you know, it's just environmental or, you know, other things that they don't want to hear, but they also want to know what's happening to their body.
Well, from what you just said there, the actual event of being, it's 12 months without going through, without having a cycle, right? Mm-hmm. But you said that was 50s to 60s, but then you said late 30s, mid 40s was the start. So that's a long ass time.
Yeah. Some women can go over a decade. When it starts, and so, like, for example, if you are going through the perimenopause and you haven't had a cycle for the full 11 months, and you end up getting a cycle on the last day, because it's always good to keep a tracker of that 12 months, you're still not in menopause, and then you have to start again.
Interesting.
So, you know, some women can experience from as young as late 30s, which is also known as early menopause. Around the mid 40s is when it should naturally happen, but then women can go all the way into their mid 50s to 60s before it actually, and it's a long time for a woman to go through. As I say, there's up to 34 and counting symptoms that women will experience going through the transition of what's happening to their body.
And there's no definite age on it. It's a mix. You don't know when it's going to hit. You don't know what you're going to experience. There's up to 38 things that you could be experiencing. And I'm guessing, that's why I've got two women here to tell. I'm guessing that you wouldn't be able to put a pin on it, and some of them might be more subtle than others as well, right? You might be feeling like, ooh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but at the end of the day, who knows what it could be, right? I mean, it's very confusing.
Well, me and Katie were just talking about that. I mean, one of the symptoms is hair loss. But most women in Dubai experience hair loss because of the water quality, the showers, and, so when women think that they are maybe experiencing one thing, it could be a total different thing. And, we also spoke about, is it hereditary, is it genetics? Like, we're going out into the subject of it's been a taboo because it's a subject that's never really spoken about, for the fact that women feel embarrassed. Women feel embarrassed about what is happening to their body because, first of all, they don't know who to talk to. They don't have a support network, and then when they do go to ask for help, the help isn't always there.
The doctor's fobbing them off, as you said.
Yeah, because a lot of the doctors, and what I've researched and stuff as well, if it is a lot of male doctors that people are going to, they don't empathise with these women until you find an actual expert that can pinpoint everything that's going on in your body and say, this is definitely you now at the point of perimenopause. And there is other ways that you can get your hormones tested. But it's like anybody in their body, their hormones will start to deplete eventually through age. But at what point does that depletion count as you're now in perimenopause?
But we're each not an expert in women's hormones by any, at all. But I know with men, it's all relevant to the individual as well. Mm-hmm. So I know what my testosterone is because I've had it checked for the years and I can monitor it. But if a woman just shows up at the hospital randomly and says, I'm feeling these things, and they check the hormones, that would also be confusing because the woman might naturally have... We've all got different levels of hormones, right? Yeah. So it must be very hard to actually pinpoint this.
Yeah, and this is one of the issues, isn't it, I think? So, it's a total lack of education. From we're same, similar age, aren't we? And, even if you think back to being at school, you're not taught about this. You're not taught about how you're supposed to feel or what might happen, whether it's perimenopause or, the full-blown menopause. And that lack of education means that even as women, we're uncertain of, how we might feel or how we behave and the impacts, that it has on our lives, on a grander scale. And we don't actually know what's normal, I guess, in reality. And as Sharon said, we all go through these things, at different phases, different, speeds, and no story will ever be the same. Experience will ever be the same. And again, going back to our conversation earlier, we spoke about different environmental factors or things that you do actively in your life, which can also impact, your hormonal levels, having children, not having children, starting periods early or later, perhaps, contraception. All these things can trigger a different, physiological response, I guess, within your body of how you do respond. And the reason I wanted to join today is because, again, I spoke to you, didn't I, Cyrus, last week. And, I'm approaching 43 now, and I've been very fortunate, I think, during my kind of adult life or since I started my periods, that I've actually, had very even temperament, throughout my life, and I feel that I've been fortunate because of that. I'd like to think my husband doesn't think I'm a raving lunatic of the month, when I'm due my period, because I am level-headed. However, that said, in the last few years, I've definitely noticed a change in my temperament at certain times of the month, or my stress levels. So certain things might get me more stressed than they ever would have done before. Lack of sleep or poor sleep quality is definitely one for me as well. And that, as we said earlier, has a big impact on your day anyway. If you don't have a good sleep, decent sleep, you can wake up and feel all sorts of emotions, can't you? That coupled with kind of getting hot sweats as well, or just burning up. I might be on a call for work and I just start to get really hot at my desk. I'm like, what is going on? But
then you live in Dubai, so you don't know if it's just because
exactly.
It's a temperature.
Get the AC up. Yeah. And I've actually been to the doctors a couple of times, and to Sharon's point, officially from a doctor's medical perspective, you are not in the menopause until you've gone through that 12-month period of period abstinence and not having one. But the perimenopause is when you start to have these symptoms before you have the menopause, and I've been kind of fobbed off really. With doctors I've been to see, they'll talk about hormone levels, they'll they'll check them. I've been told that my estrogen levels are depleting, but they're not that low, so
Right.
I'm okay. And you kind of walk away feeling a bit stupid,
Right.
to be quite honest, because no one really listens to you. And I know my body more than anyone else knows my body and how I feel, and I know there's been a change there. So to know that you kind of go to a professional, kind of saying this is how I'm feeling, it's not normal for me. Can you help me? Like, well, no, we can't really. You can't go on HRT until you've gone into menopause, and all these different factors that they need to consider, which of course they're doing the job. And advising you in that way, but there's no kind of proactive measure. I've never been to the doctor and said, have you thought about your lifestyle? Do you work out regularly? Have you thought about, different vitamins that you might want to take, or different foods you might want to take to increase your estrogen levels? No one educates you at all, wherever you go, and it's just frustrating.
I mean, the women that I have spoke to so far, there is apparently this amazing menopause doctor, and by all means I'm not a doctor. The reason I'm educating myself is to be that missing person in between, in that transition from when you do need to get medication and HRT and stuff like that, but there is things that you can do in the build up to that, like for your exercise, your nutrition, your vitamins and things like that. But there's a 9-month waiting list for this menopause doctor in Dubai.
Wow.
So if you've got how many women in Dubai in that age range, and when I spoke to another member, and when she's having a bad day, like she would want to be able to pick up that phone and go and see her doctor like in the next couple of days. She can't afford to be waiting 9 months for another appointment, because when women are at that point in their life where it gets to the point where they feel like they're just losing it, they want to be able to have help, they want to be able to go to a doctor. So I want to be that kind of in between, whereas building a community, building a support network, having people that you can go and speak to, because nobody's journey is the same. Like, you've got different types of menopause, because if you have unfortunately been through cancer treatments, that can bring on early menopause, which happened to my sister. Again, if you've had hysterectomy, that's full on, you've just had your uterus and your womb taken away from you, so that's a lot more mental for women to get through. And then you've got the natural process, and as you were saying earlier, until you reach that menopause, you just need to live with this, and this is what women can't live with. And there's a charity that's been made in the UK about a woman I told you about, and she was a lawyer, so very high-end job, and she needed to be switched on for her job, and she didn't know what was happening with her body, and then nobody would help her. She kept getting fobbed off, until one day she just went to the car park and jumped off the car park. Because she had and they've built this
felt so bad.
Yeah,
that was it.
And the suicide rate is higher by the time it comes to that, because we women are feeling lost and feel like there's nowhere, and this is the taboo and the stigma that goes with it, because they don't have that. And by all means, I wouldn't be able to help someone to that point, but as long as they know that they've got someone that they can come and reach out to and speak to, or they've got a network of women that will listen to them, and that's maybe all that they want.
So what's right now in Dubai, like the members that are listening to this, what is available? Obviously, you've mentioned that they can come and speak to you, but what do women do? Like, they're not feeling themselves, they're at that age. The doctors fob them off.
Women being women, we just get on with it.
Yeah.
It's what we've always known to do, right? And I say that kind of half jokingly, but you kind of do, because no one's taught you to do anything else.
Right, just get on with it.
Yeah, and it's just that's the way
and a
it's
lot
been.
of them still have like children, and because if they are in their 40s, they're still going to have children that they need to get up for in the morning, and they need to. But it's building that routine in, because in Dubai it's totally different from being back in the UK, because a lot of women might not have a job to get up and go to, so they have to have the gym, or they have their own group of friends. But one of the other members that I spoke to, because she went through a hysterectomy, her friends didn't understand what was going on with her, they didn't empathise with her, and she felt like she couldn't really talk to them, because like they were all in like their late 30s, and she's like, nobody knows what I'm going through here.
Right.
So, you know, this is a missing piece that what I have found so far in Dubai, that there is nothing available for these women. And I've only picked this up in the last, I don't know, 9 months. That I researched a lot of it until the course started, because obviously I needed to wait in the course opening up. But like the clients that I was working with as a PT, and you know, this is why I had said it would be good to get males involved as well, because every male has a female in their life, whether it's a sister, a wife, a mother, PT clients. And when you've got these PT clients, you don't know how they're going to feel that morning when they wake up. Yeah. Because it can be full on, you know, boom, like I can't get out of bed. Or they could be like singing and dancing and being all happy. So with that empathy that comes with your clients, you know, I always say, you know, like, as long as I've not left the house and as long as I'm not sitting in the gym waiting for you, like, I will not charge you for this session. But, you know, if you're having a bad day, and that's how I've kind of managed my clients in the past, because they know that I'm not going to be like, oh, she's sick again, or she's been lazy or whatever, because this is the stigma that goes with it. And you know, it's all about understanding your client, which all male PTs need to. And it's not a course that a male PT is like, oh, I'm going to go and learn about menopause. But if they needed to come and speak to me and say, Sharon, I've got a client and I'm feeling that she's a bit, you know, are you able to speak to her? Then at least they've got someone in between that, so it's not putting added pressure on them.
Yeah. You know, I think it's about normalising it as well as a topic of conversation. Yeah. It's like you say, you know, it's a taboo. It shouldn't be. It happens to every female, you know, regardless of, you know, the route that they reach menopause at and why. But it shouldn't be a taboo. Yeah. And I hope you don't mind, Sharon, but we were chatting earlier, and she'd mentioned about a gentleman that she'd spoken to recently, and she'd spoken about us doing this podcast, and you know, maybe wanting to you know, build a network of women and men, you know, about the topic, you know, for educational purposes and support. And his response was like, oh, I don't want to sit in a room with, you know, loads of women talking. And that is the issue that we have.
Crazy women, he said.
Crazy women, yeah, thank you. And that's the issue we have, this stigma that is around menopause and perimenopause, and that women can be, you know, batshit crazy, excuse me, you can mute that, and, you know, that there's something wrong with it and unnormal about it, because it's not, and it shouldn't. People should feel comfortable talking about it.
Do all women go through this perimenopause and menopause? Is it like a 100%?
Oh yeah, as long as you're a woman,
you're a female, you're going through it.
Absolutely. I think it's the symptoms will obviously be more symptomatic than others. Some people will be very mild, some might not even, you know, even have any or think about it. Others would be very severe, like to Sharon's point about the lady, you know, she spoke about earlier. So this is the case as well. It's very different for
nobody's journey is ever going to be the same.
No, but I think how people react to it, is what probably needs to change more than anything, because I think if women feel supported by their partners, the spouse, brothers, fathers, whatever, and they've got a network around them where they do feel comfortable talking, then that will ease a lot of the stress, anxiety that person might feel as well.
Oh, absolutely. Knowing that you've got that support system there, and that it's okay to talk about it, and that it's normal to be to be feeling these strange things that's happening with your body. Yeah. Oh, I think that's half of the battle right there. And just from what you've said so far, I think you should start a Facebook group and open it up and have women, you know, and grow you know, it's almost like a charity, but it's not, right? A place where women feel comfortable, and you can have meetups, you know, once a month or something, where women, if they're feeling,
and men.
Yeah, and men can come as well. Good luck getting someone's husband, but you know, it is about educating and doing podcasts and putting more content out there, which is what we've been talking about. I've been on a case to do more videos about this and to push it out there, so women and men that are going through this, you know, can educate themselves and, you know, feel more comfortable.
Yeah. Well, I've made an Instagram page, and it's called Menopausitivity, because I don't want people to see menopause as a negative thing. Yeah. Because when you were saying earlier about, like, the perimenopause can go on for a decade and you don't know what you're going to be like 1 month to the next, these women want to reach menopause. They want to be at that point where they do not have to deal with these hormones every month, the night sweats, the all the other symptoms that goes along.
What
with
other
it.
symptoms are there? Just like
There's as I say, they're endless. So it could be something as hair loss. It could
Right.
be your night sweats, insomnia, constipation. Your cramps can get, severe to the
Right.
point that you can't get out of bed.
right, irregular periods. You've already said
Yeah.
more or less.
Yep. And then, I had a friend that bled for months to the point that she needed help, and they basically took her into hospital and gave her a hysterectomy.
Oh, my God.
And she's only in her late 30s, you know.
Wow.
So that was a
crazy.
severe case, but it's like the hot flushes. My friend that I was telling you about earlier, we would just be sitting, and the next minute she would just start stripping because it's like a ball of fire apparently comes from within that just sets your whole body on fire. Then again, you've got the symptoms that come along with that, because then you start to get body odour. Women's body odour starts to change. So even if they've not had, bad body odour before, because of their constant sweats.
Interesting.
The insomnia, and then
Yeah.
the mood swings that come back with that.
The mood swings,
itchy
yeah.
skin,
Yeah.
acne, adult acne, things that they've never ever experienced
Wow.
before in their life can
Yeah.
all come at this point where they've never experienced anything like this before in their life. So you can see how it's not just a physical thing, it's a mental thing, it's an emotional thing, and it's a lot for someone to take on at this point in their life when they should be at their peak.
Yeah.
And a lot of people talk about midlife crisis. You'll get people, oh yeah, I had a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Midlife crisis is actually what menopause was named as, because
Oh, really?
these people thought that these women were just having a midlife crisis.
So why the hell are men using that for their own? We don't do this, eh?
But what we were talking about earlier is because men don't empathise with their women, and I said this to you as well, Cyrus, last week, that when women go through hormone imbalances, and that could be from pregnancy, you empathise with your wife because you know that her hormones are all over the place, she's growing a
Absolutely,
baby,
Got something,
and
yeah,
you're
at
getting
the end
something
of
at the
it.
end of that.
For sure.
Or fast forward 10 years, whatever, later, when they're going through the menopause, men, because women don't know what's happening to them, the men don't know, and then they can't empathise with them. So the divorce rate from perimenopause, 40s, 50s, is a lot higher in married couples, because the men can't cope with what's going on with their wife.
Yeah.
And this is what we said, you're lucky enough to have a good husband that you can sit and have that conversation with, and he can empathise with you. But there's a lot of men out there that just don't want to have that conversation. I have
They shut it out.
yeah, an older client as well, and I was chatting to him one day, and I was telling him that I was doing this course, and then he called his wife crazy again, and I just shut him down, and I was just like, please do not use that word, especially to your wife, because that's just going to send the hormones even more. And once I had a conversation with him, I was driving out the car park, and there he was walking in his car with a big bouquet of flowers, and I rolled down the window, and he was like, oh, I feel really bad because I didn't understand. So if I can change one man's perspective on how he,
Yeah.
like I said, just if you're having a bad moment, just go out and go a walk. Just walk away from the situation, because you're just fueling the fire by, causing more arguments with your wife and things like that.
Yeah.
So, it's how you can then help, and I'm not a counsellor or a therapist either, but it's like how you can then help men to try and empathise with their wife, even though if they're not getting anything at the end of it.
No, absolutely. I think the differences between men and women are great enough already. We have different perspectives and ways of thinking, and women already go through their cycle and everything else that they go through, and I do think that what you've told me would just put additional stress, and men wouldn't be able to understand this at all, and we would just think you were giving us a hard time, and it would cause, I could see how it would cause more divorces. And
I'd like to ask you, Cyrus, if it's okay. As a male sat here with two women in their approaching mid-40s, I know we don't look it. How do you feel as a male sitting here now, listening to what we're talking about? Is it a topic that you feel uncomfortable with? Is there, a point at which you actually think, I don't need to know this, or I don't want to know this, if you're really honest with yourself? Or actually, do you feel like, I want to know more? Because when my wife reaches this stage, I want to be able to support her.
Yeah. No, I would want to have the information and to at least be aware that this is something that's going to happen. Like you just said, it's not women have to go through it, and having had a son recently and been through that whole thing, understanding how a woman's hormones can change and how it can change them and how they feel and how powerful this whole thing is. It's not it's not a small thing. It can completely make or break someone. So I would want to have that information. I wouldn't want to go in as far as Sharon's going in and understand the actual science behind it, or but to have the basic information. Even already I feel like, oh my god, this is way more crazy than what I ever thought it was going to be. This is an actual serious thing that we should take seriously. Maybe before this conversation I wasn't taking it seriously. I didn't realize the full implications and how it can impact a woman's life, So no, I would want that information so I could support my wife and not, hopefully not get a divorce.
So I was telling you earlier as well, I'm one of the things that really shocked me is from women going through puberty and reaching menopause, they have bled for the equivalent of 8 years of their life.
Wow.
And that's quite a big wow, and that's a big number to actually think about.
That's insane.
These women, and we were talking about earlier, and this is part of the stigma and taboo, it's women have always been through their career. I remember years and years and years ago when I was trying to get into the fire brigade. And back then it was unheard of for any female firefighters. I could probably count on one hand in where I lived the amount of female firefighters, because it was because you're late 20s, early 30s, so you're going to be having a family and you're going to be having kids, and then you've got that stigma to get past. And then once women reach their peak, and they might be in their peak of their career, a lawyer or whatever, and then it's or they're going for a promotion, they're hitting that maybe mid-40s, and by that point they're oh well, she's going to be going through the menopause soon, so she's... And brain fog, we were talking about this earlier, brain fog is one of the huge factors of the menopause. Women just become forgetful, and it's not because they just forgot, it's because it's a cognitive. It's actually, they're trying to now make the perimenopause and the menopause more of a cognitive thing that's going on, because
it's actually a physiological thing that's happening where you can't,
because they have no control over it. Dementia, that is an actual disease that they treat, or they try and help as much as they can. But when women go and say, oh, I've got brain fog, or I'm forgetful, or of this or that, and they're just oh well, we can't do anything until you're ready to go on HRT, which we will talk about later. But my whole point is, I want to educate myself now for the next 4, 5, 6 years. And what is the best way for me to mentally and physically prepare my body to go through that, because it's going to happen. And what we spoke about earlier as well is because I've never actually sat down and spoke to my mum and said to my mum, how was your menopause? Because again, it's a stigma, it's a taboo. It's oh, you can't talk about that. But it's going to help me genetically,
for sure,
hereditary.
Absolutely.
My mum and dad are still together, so I hope that was one of the factors that she had an easy menopause, because you've got that to look into as well, and how your family and stuff went through it. But it's not something that you're going to sit at Christmas dinner and say, oh, so how was your menopause?
But it should be. It shouldn't be. It's like anything. When we went through school, we didn't get taught anything about health, real life, mindset, hormones, sex, nothing. We had to learn it on the streets, doing it, right? Or, and it's just ridiculous. I now I have a son, I'm no, I'm going to teach him, everything, at least so he's not wondering, how it happened. And I do feel like you two are ahead of the game massively due to your healthy habits. And, you look after your bodies, you train well, you eat well, and so, but, anyway, when you go to a doctor, man or woman, and you go and say, I've got this issue, right? A normal GP will give you a drug. They won't talk about sleep, nutrition, training. Guys have a reduction in testosterone every year from, I don't know what age it is, it's early 20s, right? And it goes down, and now a lot of the guys are going on testosterone replacement therapy. It's very, very normal. There is a lot of men mid to late 40s taking testosterone, right? And the doctor will tell you, I've done TRT for, not for the last few years, but I did it for 6 months as like an experiment to see what impact it would have on my body, and I've gone from having low testosterone to having very high testosterone, back down to low and lower, because when you take testosterone as a man, your body stops producing it. So I had this really low peak. So I felt, I think, more so than other men my age might not have felt this. I felt very high testosterone, and I've also felt very low testosterone. And I understand in some way, I'm not a woman, what flipping the hormones could be like. And I'm a very positive, driven person. I naturally am, as much as humans we are predispositioned for negativity, but I feel like as a man I'm more positive than the average. I feel like that. I have more positive thoughts than negative. But when I had this low testosterone after taking TRT for 6 or 8 months, man, I was not feeling positive. I was not feeling good. I had no energy to train. Sleep was all crazy. I was having 85% negative thoughts coming in my mind, and I was like, this is crazy. And I was aware enough to be able to take myself out of that situation and be like, your life's fine, dude. You just got low test. Kind of like train harder, suck it up, eat well, try and sleep. And I got through it naturally. I didn't take any of the drugs that they give me to bring my testosterone back naturally, because I was done with pricking myself with needles. And like, I'm done with all the drugs. I just want to naturally just let my body do what it naturally wants to do. But I feel like, back to my point, went on a little bit of a tangent there, that you two are ahead of the game already. And if you go, as a man, if you go to the doctor and they find low testosterone, the first thing that they will do is give you the basics. They will say, eat healthy food, sleep the same time every night, exercise your body, lift weights. And I feel like the general population of women that are maybe neglecting their health, running around with the kids, rushed, not going to the gym, not eating healthy, could probably, without even going to see a doctor, increase their everything, just make their lives better through just, being a little bit aware and talking to people, like you said, but training regularly, looking after your health, basic stuff. I mean, look what COVID did to people. The healthy people were generally okay, and the really out of shape people, that give them a shock. They were almost dying because they were already at this lower level. And I feel like generally pushing women to be more healthy and to get a grip of the basics would automatically, bring them into a better position with this whole thing.
I absolutely agree. And I think that's where proactivity comes in as well, isn't it? If you're proactively, as I mentioned earlier, you know your own body more than anyone, don't you? And, when we also know, if you do go to the gym, you work out how great you feel afterwards, with all the endorphins and things. So if you kind of know that and you can build in, healthy habits into your lifestyle as a female or male, then I do think that is then setting you up for a smoother transition, I would think, into perimenopause.
And like what we said as well, there isn't an easy way to do it. If we knew what that was, then, my job would be a lot easier, because everybody's different. But, people that are already suffering from diabetes or already have underlying issues, I can't imagine it's going to be pleasant on their body compared to a lot of women who are already ahead of, the game. So, we're not doctors, but we just say that, the healthier you are, the more you probably be able to go in just a mental, mentally waking up in the morning and saying, I don't feel good today, but I'm still going to go out there and get it done. I'm going to go to the gym. Setting that mindset for the morning and setting that positivity.
Absolutely.
And then you might have a lull in the day and you just pick up the phone and you can speak to someone, and it's like, my day isn't that bad. But I feel like as well, the stigma with women, like you said, when you go to the doctors and a doctor will tell a man, like, you just need to suck it up and go and do it. Like, and how many times have you probably heard it as well, like when women fall pregnant, like, oh, you can't go to the gym anymore, like you're not allowed to train, and and it's sad that women are perceived that way, because there isn't any reason not to. You just need to adapt what you're doing. And it's the same, like when our hormones are depleting, like we have testosterone as well. So when our testosterone is depleting, and this is one of the doctors that I listened to a podcast, and this is what I'm trying to educate if I could educate my younger self, is she wished in her 50s that she started taking testosterone in her 40s. She says, I wish that I could rewind 10 years knowing what she knows now and start again, because she would have done her whole transition a lot better. But she's went through it to understand how she could have done it different. So this is why I don't want to get to that stage, like we were saying earlier, like if you could tell your 40s what would you do different in your 30s,
Absolutely.
your 30s what you do different in your 20s, well, why wait until you're 10 years older to then tell yourself what you can already educate yourself about? And that's all it is. It's just education and doing something completely different that you can change your life with, to a point where you're not going to be suffering or hopefully going through a divorce or joining the gym just to release those endorphins to be able to get out of bed in the morning.
I'm hearing like awareness and trying to educate people on it so they don't feel alienated and they feel like they can talk to other women that are going through exactly what they're going through. So opening up a group and making people feel comfortable talking about this, right? Number one. Number two, basic health that you would advise any man or woman at any age of their life to train regularly, eat right, sleep properly. Now, beyond that, what else is someone to do? Like, is there books? Is there a specific doctor, a specific podcast?
Yeah, so, well, obviously this podcast. There's the most famous doctor is Dr. Louise Newson. And
Louise Newson.
Yeah, she's from the UK, and she, she's very vocal about, her whole journey. I mean, there's two routes you can take, which we'll go into in a second. So there's obviously, letting your body transition naturally, or there's the HRT, which is your, hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
But she's done a lot of podcasts. I told you about the one that she done with James Smith, and obviously he was very vocal and interactive in that as well, which she was quite shocked about, because she's like, wow, you've really, educated yourself in this, because he's like, well, why wouldn't I? I'm going to have a wife and I've got sisters and things like that. So, it's nice to see that men are actually trying to, educate themselves as well.
Understanding.
But yeah, I mean, there's books out there. Davina McCall, you like Davina McCall?
Yeah.
She's been very. A lot of these, TV personalities and stuff that are now in their late 40s, 50s, and that are now bringing awareness more. Like your Davina McCall, the other one I can't remember her name, but there's at least there now. The face in front of helping these women. Like Davina wrote a book, she does podcasts as well.
Right.
But for me, it's like, you can listen to someone, but then that doesn't also get you that empathy of coming and having a conversation. I mean, we've just sat there and spoke for over an hour, and the conversation was flowing because we're on the same page, we're on the same wavelength. But these women that are out there that feel alienated and alone, or they feel embarrassed to talk about it, might not have someone that they can turn to say, I need just to go for a coffee, or I want to come to a gym class. One of our other members, she got to the point where, she felt so lost. She went away to a retreat in Thailand, and she done a really, really intense course. She changed all her nutrition, lost loads of weight. And now she said, Sharon, even if I do not feel like getting out of bed in the morning, the only thing that I know that's going to make me feel good is when I've come and done a boxing session and, got all her aggression and stuff out in a bag. Yeah. And that makes me feel happy knowing that she's walking away having a better day than what she would have if she didn't come to the gym.
Yeah, even without this, it's important, just any, like I said, guy, woman, just generally training consistently will uplift you mentally.
Yeah.
It's, a basic part of life, movement. We don't move enough. But even more important, going through something like this, where you are going to be feeling a little bit more down than normal, man, the exercise portion is critical.
This is the thing, because it's like, it's cognitive. It's all about your mental health. So, like, we all have bad days, but you know that day is just one day. But when you're feeling like these women are feeling, it can go on for a decade, and they can't live like that for a decade. And you always have good days and bad days, but if there is something that you can add into your daily activity, whether it is nutrition, there is nutrition that is high in, like estrogen, or there is supplements that you can take that can help, try and
conducive to helping the hormonal imbalances or whatever's going on.
I spoke to another member, and she went to a doctor, and they were like, all right, there's your vitamins that I want you to take, and I want you to stop taking. And it was quite shocking to me, like, why anyone would tell someone to stop taking collagen.
Right.
Because collagen is like your testosterone, like you're losing at least 1 to 1.5% every year, and by the time that you reach your 40s, your body's already depleting of hormones. Collagen is a natural thing that your body needs.
Yeah.
So we're already feeling like, I'm looking old, I feel old, my skin's sagging. Like, why would you take that out of your daily supplementation? So I'm like, I would just take it anyway, because it's part of my daily intake. That's what I do, that's what I take. But I think a lot of women just listen to what the doctor has to say. You can't train, you can't take this, you can't take that. Then that's
for sure. Doctors have a very we have a very strange way in society of just prescribing drugs and not educating people on lifestyle, the basics, right? We're addressing we're addressing the pain of the situation, whatever it is. We're not getting into the underlying foundation of health and how to live a better life through lifestyle choices. It's not just in this area, it's in all areas of medicine. We go to the hospital, we get a pill. It's insane. But I do think as well, like, for women listening, if they are going through this and you haven't quite found the right doctor, I got told when I was going through a serious back injury that there is someone out there that can help you. You just need to not give up, and you need to keep visiting these doctors until you find one that knows how to fix you, because you're not the only person to have this problem. There's a lot of people before you that have had it, and I went through 3 or 4 doctors, spinal experts, surgeons in Dubai, some of the best healthcare in the world, and I got told absolute nonsense. And eventually I found someone that helped me, right? But it was the 5th doctor that I went to see. So it's like, don't give up, keep speaking to people, do your research. There is many women, as you said, all women go through this. So many women have been through this already and have made mistakes and have done things that have helped them. So there is people out there that can help you, and more so hopefully women are becoming open to the fact that you can speak about it, know?
I do think as well, it's perhaps a little bit off topic, but I do think workplaces as well should start taking a bit more of a proactive approach. I've worked in HR for 20 years, and there's no kind of policies around this type of thing. And I know it's a difficult one, because then you have to go into or you're at risk of going into minutiae detail of like, well, we need a policy for every illness or ailment out there, and it's not possible to do that. But again, I think from an awareness perspective, as you mentioned, this lady, in her career, unfortunately committed suicide, or died by suicide, I think is the right term to use now. And if there was more support perhaps at her workplace as well, then that perhaps wouldn't have happened if they were able to empathise with her. So I do think there's gains definitely to be had in the corporate world as well to support people.
And the only way that can happen is people being more vocal about it, because if these women feel like they can't speak up, or their boss isn't a boss that they can go and actually speak to and say, I need some time. Like when women have a baby, they get maternity leave, and it's like, well, what happens when women are at their, and as you say about the drugs and the prescriptions and stuff, it's all about women just get antidepressants handed to them. They're not depressed. But they feel like there is no way out of their situation because they're not being given the right information. So all they get given is a bunch of antidepressants and get told to go and take that, and
it's crazy.
you know, so definitely I think that workplaces need to you know, be more aware of what happens, but I think we're a long way away from that.
But this is something you can do as well, Sharon. I mean, with everything you're doing with this, you can set up something where you go into workplaces and you give talks, right? And I know that a lot of these corporate companies offer coaches of different areas of expertise to come in and they have talks, you know, and one day you might have 50 women and one day you might have one, but you know, you're going to impact someone and help them maybe get through this.
Yeah, and that's what my end goal is, because there is such a massive gap in the market for this, and look at the amount of women that are in Dubai, and you know, like, as much as Dubai is an amazing place, like, we're not quite as forward as what is happening in the UK and other places and stuff, because it is still, I mean, maternity leave here is still, you know, very minimal. So, you know, only getting minimal maternity leave, imagine going and saying, yeah, I need to take time off because I'm going through the menopause, and it'll just be like, well, there's your notice, and, you know. So women are always living in fear. They're always living in fear of what is about to happen to them.
Right.
But yeah, moving on to like the HRT, when you said about you were taking TRT. Women wait until the point where they cannot go through this anymore before they go and get help, and they've not done really anything to help themselves to that build-up. So as soon as they're offered HRT, they're going to take it.
Yeah.
And this is what I want to educate people on. There's no right or wrong way for your journey. Everybody's different, but you need to understand the other health implications that come along with that, because obviously it can increase your chances of breast cancer, blood clots. Certain women can't get it as well, like if they've already had like health implications, they can't get the HRT. But I've spoke to women as well that are like, as soon as I walk into that doctor's, I don't even want to research. As if they tell me that they can give me something right there and then that is going to make me feel better and make all this go away, I'm going to take it. So again, it's just about educating women on what path do you want to go. Do you want to go more the natural way and start now and help your body over the next 5-10 years, or do you want to wait until there's nothing else that you can do when you're going to accept that?
For sure. Well, obviously the smarter choice is to look after yourself now, so you can transition into that period of your life easier and make everything much more comfortable the natural way. Right? That's always going to be the first approach, because anytime you put something in your body that's not food, you are having something's going to happen, right? There's a reaction from everything. Testosterone replacement therapy, you know, it doesn't come without its dangers. You're injecting something into your body.
But the younger you doesn't want to research that, right? So like, if we were talking about this as well earlier, like when you're going into your first relationship and you're a teenager or you're in your early 20s, and you know, you become sexually active with your partner, and they're like, you need to go on the pill so that you don't become pregnant, because you don't want to be like 19-20 years old and being pregnant. So what are you going to do? You're going to take it. But you don't actually research. All you're getting told is, well, if you take this pill, you're not going to have a baby because you're too young. And we've all done it. But if I could tell my younger self now, would I do that then? Definitely not. I mean, we've both said that it's been like over a decade before we took any sort of contraceptive pill, because you're just pumping extra hormones into your body. And this is another thing that can also...
It stops the period as well, right?
It can. Some different of them can. Different types. But like, what happens is that the longer that you've put all these extra hormones into your body, is that going to cause... a greater effect by the time it comes to that, because you don't actually know how your body is balanced when it comes to hormones. And you know, I made a massive decision like over 10 years ago that like the pill is not for me, because it can make you go even more crazy. Or you know, it can stop you. I mean, women have went years and years without having a menstrual cycle, and that's a natural thing for us. And then, you know, it can cause...
So the pill stopped it Yeah, Nalasha tried the pill for a small while. That was not for her.
Yeah.
It completely just made her, she would just wake up and start crying.
Yeah.
Out from nowhere, you know? And immediately I told her, stop taking these damn pills, right? You know, we'll figure it out another way, because this isn't the way forward. I mean, just completely changing the personality, you know? It's insane. And so powerful. And so just giving it out easily, you know, in the UK. I remember all the girls taking it, you know, when we were in school and stuff, and it's just crazy.
But that was what we were educated on. That was what, you know, when you did have that conversation with your mum, like, you know, the first thing you were like, well, you're going on the contraceptive pill because I don't want a grandchild, like, you know. And it's like, this is another thing that schools should be educating people, because you should have a choice of what is happening to your body. And I feel like it's a lot of peer pressure. So there's a lot of peer pressure about, you know, you need to go on the contraceptive pill. It's a lot of peer pressure about you need to go on HRT. It's a lot of peer pressure for women just in general, when we need to now take a step back and say, right, how do I want this transition to go for me? Do I want to change my lifestyle now and do X, Y, and Z, or do I just want to wait and see what happens? You know, so you need to balance that out as well.
I feel like you just said there, school. I'm a very strong believer in parents taking full responsibility for the education of their kids. You know, I do feel like a lot of parents rely on the schools for things that they shouldn't. You know, and my parents didn't teach me any of this stuff at all. Nothing. School didn't teach us anything as well. So we just kind of like, you know, like I said, figure it out as you do it. Which I have some funny stories in that, but not for this podcast. But the parents, it's on the parents, man. It's your kids. You need to educate your children on these subjects that matter, you know. And like you said, you've never spoke to your mum about it. Your mom. There's no one in this world closer to you than your parents, and you've not had a conversation with your own mum. So imagine, we're just, you know, you're almost losing hope at that point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But that was a taboo. Like, that was something that was never really, you know, spoken about back then. And it's not until I'm now reaching my 40s that I'm like, I need to now find that out. I mean, my sister went through it, unfortunately, because she had breast cancer. So, you know, that was taken away from her, like, at an early age, which affects people more so mentally and physically.
What was taken away from her?
Like, she went through a hysterectomy after she had breast cancer, because part of the breast cancer, you know, rebound is that you're probably going to get, like, ovarian cancer and things, but the chemo can also bring on, like, early menopause. So they give her a hysterectomy directly on purpose. There wasn't anything wrong down there, but there's a good chance that she's going to get cancer. Yeah, if it comes back as secondary cancer, it would normally come back as the ovarian cancer. And then back to then, you know, we had to go and do some research, because my gran died at a very young age, and nobody knew until it was too late. And I always remember the last time walking into the bedroom, and she was basically on her deathbed, and you just knew that she had cancer, but nobody asked any questions. And when we done the research, when my sister ended up with breast cancer, she had ovarian cancer. So it was actually hereditary in the family, but, you know, until she never told anybody, because she was embarrassed by it. And she died quite young. She died like in her early 60s. But it was like, why would you not want your family history to be available to people, so that, you know, I can go and get the test done to make sure that, because now I would be classed as a high risk if I went on HRT, because that can also increase your chances of bringing on breast cancer. So I know for a fact that if I do go down this road, that's not an option for me. Right. So I know that I'm now going down.
But you are going down the road, right? You, regardless of whether you want to or not, you're going down the road.
But I just need to pick the right
which
path
way you're going to go, and for you, the natural way is the smarter choice, given that you've got the information about your family, and you can make that decision now because you have done the research and you've looked into this, right? And you're more prepared for it already.
Yeah.
And most people aren't. They've got no idea.
And that was the whole part of the education, is because I'm now educating my older self, because we always want to educate your younger self. Like when we were talking about, my niece is 15, but my sister has always been an open book with her. And she sat down and she's told her everything about, from the birds to the bees to, contraception and all this kind of stuff. She says because
that's awesome.
This is how she now wished that we were educated.
For sure.
But it's just because it's a different generation, and you think that you go to school and you get educated at school, but you're not.
No, you're
so
not.
The only person that can educate you, and my sister was like, I want my daughter to be able to come to me and talk to me about anything, as you would do with your son, or if you have a daughter. You want to be able to have an open door policy to say anything goes, because
isn't it
it's
great?
life.
It's just life. So obvious now. Why wouldn't we teach our children about this?
Yeah.
But back then, nobody did. We didn't get taught anything, So no, it's a great.
I think that was because the parents just expected the teachers to
school,
do it.
And their school weren't teaching us anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously in Dubai it's a lot more of a bigger taboo subject because
of the laws and the things around it. Yeah. Is there? I want to start wrapping up slowly now. Is there? Obviously, anyone listening to this can reach out to you on Instagram, or they can reach out through us and speak to you about it, which is great. And is there any other information that you want to give the members that are listening to this? Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, obviously going down the more natural path. When it comes to like your diet and your supplements and stuff like that, there is, always key supplements that you need to take every single day. And what I found out actually when I was doing my research is HRT actually comes from a natural plant called yam root. And when you Google it, you can actually get supplements that are with that helps to increase your estrogen. I mean, nothing's fact, and as I say, doctors might tell you different, but if I know that that's available for me to go and start taking now to help, I've done the test as well, and I'll probably do them every year now because I want to know what my levels are and how, and how much they're dropping. But if I can try and maintain it, or if I can try and reduce the level of what they're reducing, it's going to happen anyway.
From taking a natural supplement, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly, and it's natural. So that's one of the key ones.
Testing the hormones to know your level, so that you can monitor it.
And my test was only like 300 and something dirhams. So if I can do that, as I say, every year or every 6 months or whatever, why wouldn't I want to know what my levels are until I have a B12 deficiency, and I waited, my B12 should have been over 1,000 IUs, and by the time that I went to the doctors, because I was literally on death's door, I could not get out of bed, I was under 100, So this is the same with your hormones, because why wait until you're depleted so much that the only option for you to do is to go on HRT to actually boost your estrogen, your proestrogen levels.
Yeah.
So, for me it's all about taking the right supplement. So, yam, I'll probably go to the pharmacy right now and buy some.
Yeah.
And then you've got your magnesium, you've got vitamin D.
Right.
You've obviously got your omegas. Collagen, all of these should be part of your what you post every day. You've got your daily routine because you know that your body needs that as a supplement. And if there is natural ways out there to help your body feel better mentally, physically, emotionally, then start today with this, and in 10 years' time,
absolutely,
you'll be in a better position.
We come from the background of going to the doctor only when you have something seriously wrong with you, and I feel like in Dubai we have all of these specialists that can help optimize, not just fix when you have a problem, right? So I've been doing blood tests regularly for years now, and I'll go and spend, one year it was 21,000 dirhams on 12 different tests that I'd done, and this year it's been 5,000-6,000 dirhams on different hormone tests and blood tests, and I can't tell you how invaluable that's been for me, just having that information of what's going on inside my body and getting prescribed supplements specifically for my body, right? Because again, we're all different.
Exactly, yeah.
B12 for you was a problem. My B12's fine, my vitamin D3 is fine, but you never know until you actually do a blood test and the
Yeah.
doctor can sit down with you. I think it's very important to go with someone that you can trust, that has a decent background, that can sit down with you as well after the test and explain. Because I got given my test,
And you didn't know what was...
and it was all over the place, right? Red in the orange and the green. There's like a thing, and it was all. And some of them were highly in the red, and I was stressing out. And I was calling Danny, like, mate, because Danny's quite. He's done a lot of different tests, and he's very knowledgeable on supplements and things. Like, mate, what does this mean, and what does that? And he's like, oh yeah, check this out. And he was sending me videos and stuff on it. And I went to sit down with the doctor, and he's like, nah, dude, like, let me explain, right? And I was absolutely fine. Even the stuff in the red, he was like, no, but for specifically you, like, I'm looking at your body here with this test, it's fine because you do the X, Y, and Z, so it's here, right? And someone else, it might be here. So it's very important to have that individualized breakdown for you and to get given, there is supplements that are general, like you've just said, magnesium, omega-3, right, D3 and all the rest of it, but I still highly recommend people to get a blood test done.
There is nothing wrong with taking supplements. Even if your body is not needing that supplement, and like I take vitamin C every day, but like whatever my body doesn't absorb and doesn't use, it's just going to flush it out in the waste. So even if you are taking certain supplements that your body doesn't need at that particular time, then you're better still taking it. For me, I'm like, well, I take my vitamin C every day, or I take my calcium every night, or I take my magnesium, and until you get that test again. But just because maybe you took supplements for a couple of weeks and you feel fine, that doesn't mean you stop taking them because people just feel fine.
No, for sure. I think, again, that's just reiterating the importance of getting your bloods done regularly and having somebody that's experienced with reading that data and being able to put it into context for you, right? Because we're all individuals at the end of the day. We all have different levels of different things, and there is an average, you experience the low. You experience the low B12, right? I had other things that were low. But again, it's in content. You're a female, I'm a male. We have different bodies and different lifestyles and things can implement as well. So I do again feel it's
what works for one person isn't automatically going to work for another, and that's why I would reiterate again that I'm not a doctor whatsoever, but I want to be that kind of missing link between women feeling really lost. And managing to find that right doctor and what they can do in between, because the doctor isn't going to be able to fix you in one day, or
it's about having options, isn't it? So at least if people are better educated and they know that there are different options, a bit of trial and error maybe, then they can work out what works for them, whether it is supplements, whether it is around diet and food that they consume, or HRT. I think it's kind of just knowing, having enough information that you can make a more informed decision on which route you want to go down.
And as I said before, nobody's journey is the same, but like at least if you have a round the table talk with other people that have went through or going through it, maybe they've tried something that you've never heard of, like again about yam root, like would anybody just walk into a pharmacy and pick up yam root and say, I'm going to take this because I don't know what it does? But if I say, this is what I'm doing, at least if they go and try it and they start to feel a little bit better, or it does help to increase their estrogen levels, or that's one less thing that they need to worry about in the next 2-3 years, because now they've found something that can help supplement their body. But I just want to be able to help women get over the stigma and the taboo of it's nothing to be ashamed of, and every single woman will go through this, and everybody's journey will be different, but let's start talking about it.
No, I think you're doing a great job. I think it's a great path that you've been called to pursue, and I do think that we'll link up your Instagram in the show notes, and we'll link up the what was the other one you made? Menopositivity. We'll link up that and your own, so women can reach out to you if they want, through an Instagram or something like that, direct to you, so they can speak to you. And you've always got Boxica as a foundation or a link up if you want to use the cafe and do morning coffee mornings, or if you want to have a talk on menopause, you're more than welcome to to reach out to all of our members and community through email or whatever, and at least have that available for them, right? If they want to come and speak to you, for sure. I think it's
and I think if you as Boxica community can start to change the way that it's an open door to come and have a conversation. I mean, I'm very happy that Cyrus has managed to sit here and talk to us about this subject, because a lot of men would be like, oh, I don't want to listen to it, or I don't want to hear it. Yeah. But if people can come and say, like what you did with Cyrus, and you were quite open about it, and that's how we're here today, is because you had that conversation with Cyrus. And,
absolutely.
I think that if people know that it's a community and we're here to help, whether it's me, whether it's another member that's going through it, or whether it's you, then we're here to help.
Absolutely.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great chat. Until next time.
Yes.